reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The sisters of Lazarus sent word to Jesus saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus. When he heard that he was ill, he remained 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us return to Judea." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. When Martha heard that he was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary remained at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, he will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha replied, "I know he will rise on the resurrection in the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She replied, "Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world." He became disturbed and deeply troubled and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." At this, Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" Jesus, disturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone lay across it. He said, "Remove the stone." Martha said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus replied, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they removed the stone. Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but I say this because of the crowd, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Just 2 quick thoughts. These events that we just heard have taken place just before Jesus goes to Jerusalem. And by raising Lazarus from the dead, he seals his fate. He's going to be put to death, and he does it willingly. The Romans can't have someone walking around claiming to be God, because to them there's only one God, Caesar, Pontifex Maximus. The Jewish leadership can't have him walking around saying he's God, because they're so caught up in rules and laws and regulations that they can't see past the end of their nose that the Messiah is walking among them. And so his fate is sealed. Secondly, I mentioned last week that during Lent this year we get 3 long Gospels from John. The woman at the well, last week the blind man, today the raising of Lazarus. And in all 3 of them, the principal character is very slow in developing their faith. Today, Martha says that "I know that you are the Christ, the Son of God." And yet when Jesus goes to the tomb and tells him to remove the stone, her faith stumbles, and she said, "Lord, there will be a stench. He's been dead 4 days." And I mentioned last week that we need to be patient with our children's faith development. We also need to be patient with ourselves. People say in the face of difficulty, have faith. That's much easier said than done. Try to have faith if a doctor gives you a terminal diagnosis. Try to hang on to faith when you stand in a hospital room and you know that in a matter of hours you're going to surrender the person you love most in the world. Faith stumbles and falls, and that's all right. God knows we're imperfect. If we were perfect, he wouldn't have a job. And he's waiting with open arms, whether we come to him whole or fractured. He's waiting because he's a God of mercy, of healing and forgiveness. He's not a God of vindication and punishment. Amen.